Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. My name is Jody, and I'm here to bring you a new video today. Now, you know me, you love me. I'm your friend, I'm your pal, I'm your best bud, Jody, like I said just 10 seconds ago, maybe less. And I'm here to bring you a story, or maybe tell you a story, that I believe is very important. I'm a gamer, much like many of you who are watching this video, because I'd be surprised if you're not a gamer watching this video, because what are you doing here? Stinky, get out of here, loser. Gaming is in a terrible place right now. It is truly at the worst it has been since like the 80s. With the release of most modern games, they are broken, they are buggy, they are destroyed, okay? I look back to the past 10 years. The past 10 years have been just nothing but a downward spiral, continuous downward spiral for most game companies. And it's really depressing to see. But there is hope. There is definitely hope in the future of the gaming industry. And I want to kind of top this video off after I talk about everything that I want to talk about with a little hope. So let's get started. Big game publishers, Microsoft, Ubisoft, EA, Sony, Nintendo, all these guys have major issues, and if you have not been paying close attention to the gaming industry, it shows, because these guys are hemorrhaging money constantly. They are laying people off by the thousands. I think 2024, 2023 was the worst year to work in the gaming industry. I remember at the beginning of 2025, there was like 2,000 people laid off at Sony, and it is depressing to see this industry falling apart. So I just want to ask the question, what happened? How did we get here? Why is every major gaming publisher suck? Why do they suck? Why do they all just... Why are they... Wow! Why can't they seem to get a grip and figure out why they are losing money? Most games these days that are published, that are AAA, often have ballooned budgets. They are absolutely out of control. I think it was Concord that was over $400 million to produce. That game was out for 2 weeks before it got shut down. Are you kidding me? That's insane. That is absolutely just not okay. Anthem. BioWare's Anthem. Lots of money poured into that game, and it lasted for, what, probably 2 years? Maybe 1 year of content updates, if that. Crystal Dynamics Avengers. A wildly expensive game that just seemed to drop off the face of the earth. And what was it, 2 years ago? They just decided to stop the content updates and leave it at that and just say, what? We're done. No more updates, no more content. Oftentimes these games with the absolute balloon budgets are, you know, pushing boundaries with graphics and the scale and everything like that. And oftentimes it's to kind of meet the demand of what players expect from a AAA experience, which is photorealistic graphics, incredibly wide open worlds, and oftentimes they can't reach that, at least not on time. We get a lot of delays, and it ends up being a terrible work environment for a lot of these people who are working in these companies where it's a crunch culture, and this causes even more budget ballooning, even more problems with development, delays, and which the delays cause even more budget ballooning, and you start to see how these events can snowball and turn into $400 million failures like Concord. Yeah, so in 2022, it was the beginning of the layoffs, and these layoffs were just wildly outrageous. And I have a source pulled up here. Let me see. Yeah, 2022. We started the year of 2022, Q1 2022, 1,800 people laid off. It's not, you know, that's not crazy. Okay, it was Q1 2024, that's what I'm remembering. Q1 2024, 8,000 people were laid off in Q1 2024. So, over the course of the last 3 years, over 20,000 people have been laid off, and that is just insane. That shows me, and that tells me that there is an incredible mismanagement. There is a wild expectation for these games. And the fact of the matter is, the expectation comes from the investors. It comes from the CEOs. It comes from these big publishers that are requiring these AAA experiences to be as AAA as possible. And it's not a sustainable business practice. It never has been. And I look back 20 years ago, okay? I was 3 years old 20 years ago. That's a wild thought. 20 years ago was, what, that was Morrowind came out, okay? The Elder Scrolls Morrowind. In the same year, Halo came out. And in the same year, so many other games that were incredible came out. And the sequels came out like the next year, or 3 years after that, 2 years after that, 1 year after that. Games were so much easier to make back then because there wasn't an expectation that we needed to achieve this photorealism. The only point of the games was so that it would be fun to play. And I gotta tell you, there are not a lot of games that are super fun to play that are AAA experiences anymore. I see these numbers of the mass layoffs, 20,000 people, over 20,000 people. And a lot of these people, I hope, have been able to find work, because that's absolutely horrifying. I don't think anyone should be fired from a failed game. I think closing down studios is the worst practice that these publishers have shown they are more than happy to do. More than happy. They are more willing to cut people out of the picture than say, this is where we went wrong. This is what we need to fix. No more live service games. No more live service games! That's basically what I'm getting out of all this. Most of these big budget AAA games that have failed have been live service. And I think that goes to show that this monopolization, consolidation of these game companies is not the way to go. It is not the way to go. I look at the Microsoft acquisition of Bethesda, of Activision Blizzard, and let me sip out of my cocoa. I look at these major acquisitions of these companies, and I see failure. I don't see anything that tells me to have faith in these publishers. Microsoft has not put out a game that I have enjoyed for, I want to say, 5 years, 4 years. But I'm thinking like Starfield, okay? Now, I don't think Starfield is Microsoft's fault, but it definitely was someone's fault. That game was not great, I will say, but it was a hit, okay? And anytime there's a hit and it's just a mediocre game, that tells Microsoft, that tells Xbox, oh, hey, we need more of this. This is what we need. And that's not what we need. We don't need boring experiences that aren't fun to play, but because they are from these big names, and they make the money because they're from the big names, well, we just need more games from the big names. And we need to give them as much time as they need. No, you shouldn't even have the big names under your umbrella. And I see this monopolization as a affront to gaming. I don't think publishers should own gaming studios. I think they should publish the games for the gaming studios, don't own them. But I know that a lot of these companies, if they aren't owned by the publishers, and they do have a few failures in a row, they're out of a job. But in a way, that's better, because sometimes these companies do need to go. There's a lot of ways that companies can fail, and these publishers give more of an opportunity for these companies to fail instead of accepting the risks. Publishers allow these failures to continue, and they say, well, hey, we made enough sales, so let's push out another one of these games with the same crappy writing team, the same crappy development, and the same development conditions. So then we get another game, you know, I think Mass Effect Andromeda to Dragon Age the Veilguard. The Andromeda writing was terrible. Veilguard writing was even worse. Like, I get it. Someone's trying to be funny. Someone is trying to be inclusive in the way they talk, in the way they write these games. And it just falls flat on its face. Saints Row, the Saints Row remake, is one of the worst games I have ever played. Purely because of the writing. The gunplay was fun, driving around was fun, but the writing kicks me off the game every time. I hate it. And I think these studios, these companies that own these studios, allow for this kind of writing to continue, and I'm thankful, because it seems like we're coming out of that era after the Veilguard, and people realize, oh hey, it was the writing that made these games really bad. We should hopefully be done. Now, we could keep it going. I'm not excited for that, but, you know, whatever. Let's just hope. Let's hope the writing's good in these coming games. But I really truly believe publishers should not own game companies or the development studios. I think they should be publishers only, because I don't know how many book publishers own authors, you know? I know that's not a great comparison, but I think publishers that own developers, that's where we run into these issues of giant balloon costs. It used to be you had to be resourceful, and if you had a hit, you could afford to be a little less resourceful. But now that publishers are allowing these games to continue being made in the way they are, we're getting buggier messes, we're getting broken games at launch, we're getting unfulfilled promises, and that needs to stop. Monetization is a big killer for many games. One of the biggest shames was Shadow of War at launch. The loot boxes in that game were atrocious. Basically, it was pay to win for the entire game. And I remember when I was younger and the game came out. It came out 2018. I paid for a few loot boxes. Am I proud of that? No. I think I didn't even pay for them. I think because I got the premium edition or the collector's edition. I got like 10 free loot boxes. In that, it was such an easy experience, and I played on the hardest difficulty just because these orcs that I got in the loot boxes were so overpowered. Star Wars Battlefront 2 at launch was also another terrible monetization mess. It's just insane how bad that game was at launch, because what do you mean I had to pay for power-ups? I didn't touch the game for 3 years after it launched just because there was such a bad taste in my mouth. And then earlier this year we had the Make Battlefront 3. And I think that was an awesome movement. But again, publishers don't really care. They just see dollar signs, and they weren't seeing dollar signs with Battlefront 2, at least not until recently. I also look at hero shooters like Valorant, Overwatch, or I mean even CS:GO. Okay, these games that rely on, you know, the free-to-play games that rely on their in-market stores, and Fortnite, especially Fortnite. Fortnite is terrible, okay? I think Fortnite gets a pass because it's the biggest free game in the world, but you're telling me I have to spend $20 or $25 to get Peter Griffin? Are you kidding me? I'm not paying that much money for a character that should be free. You know, I look at Overwatch. Overwatch has these new skins. Oh gosh, what game was it for? Persona. Okay, Persona 5 skins, $60 for the complete kit. That's cheaper than the game is right now. I don't think that's okay. Honestly, like, call me too woke. I don't think that's okay. Genuinely, don't think that's okay. And like CS:GO, Valorant, the skins can get outrageously expensive, and I see these pushing these skins out that are like worthless. They are worthless, and they're just cosmetic. I don't think I've ever purchased a single cosmetic except for like a Fortnite skin from the free V-Bucks that you get from the Save the World, because I play that instead. I want to take a look at post-launch content for a lot of video games. And I'm looking at you, Ubisoft. Ubisoft is terrible at this. Okay, they will release DLC that sometimes ends up being the full price of the game, or like just barely half priced. And I'm thinking like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, dude. There were 3 DLC for that game, I think, and the last one was like $60 or $50. And it had an in-game shop for a single-player game, like with time savers. That's messed up. And I know the new one has stuff like that too. EA with The Sims 4 is what I believe to be a crime. It has over 100 DLCs. It costs you almost $2,000 to own every single DLC in The Sims 4. That's insane. That's unacceptable. It's a life sim game. Sims 3 had, I think, 10 DLCs, and most of them were like $10 packs, or like half of them, something like that. Like, why? It's not even that good of a game. There's been a shift in the gaming culture recently, which is the popularity of indie games. It's all started in the early 2020s with the start of the pandemic and the friend slop games. I'm talking Phasmophobia, Repo, Peak, Lethal Company. You know, these games where you get to play with your friends. Among Us was kind of the start of all that, you know, where you just get to play with your friends, and it's an indie game. It took like a week to put together, and it makes millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's incredible. I am here for that. I love that. It creates an amazing culture where you have people who, you know, friends who don't talk to each other anymore, play this game, and now they're close friends again. Like, that's what gaming should be. It should be bringing people together, not pushing them apart, not breaking the bank. Sorry. I think I would rather play a $10 game that lets me play with 3 of my friends than a $80 game that I have to wait 10 months to play so that they patch out all the game-breaking bugs. I think it's truly disappointing that... Well, it's disappointing simultaneously and exciting that indie games are now the forefront of the industry. You know, it should have been the AAA. It should have been the Starfields and the Elder Scrolls, you know, and the Halos and the Horizon Zero Dawns. But everything has become so samey. Everything has become live service. Everything has become microtransactions. Everything has become the bottom line. It's all about the bottom line. The investors, it's all about the investors. The bottom line, the investors and the CEO. How much of a bonus is the CEO going to get this year? Is it going to be 500 million or is it going to be 400 million? You know, that kind of stuff. And it's truly disappointing when I spend my time excited for a game that's published by one of these big publishers, and it comes out and it's not fun. But every time I've waited for an indie game, I have not been disappointed. I really haven't. Now, I've been lucky. I think I have good taste in indie games. And I want to point out a few that have been really successful this year specifically. Hollow Knight Silksong. That game literally broke Steam. It broke Steam. You literally could not play the game or log into Steam. Team Cherry did an incredible job, and I think it's going to be a real contender for Game of the Year this year. I also want to point out Clair Obscur Expedition 33. That game is also an incredible game, and I think it opened up the concept of turn-based games to a lot of casual gamers, which is amazing. I love turn-based. I love Pokemon. I really love. that's the only turn-based game I like. But this game was good. This game was incredible. And I know it's not indie, but Baldur's Gate 3 was another one of these incredible games that it almost felt indie. You know, like it was made by a studio, but it was more than just that. But I mean, would it? Let me look this up. Would Baldur's Gate 3 be considered indie? Yeah, so it is an indie game. It's a AAA scale indie game. So that counts too. Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year. Like, it's an incredible title. So I really think that indie games are the forefront of the industry, and I think that's incredible because it shows that there is still a passion for game development. It shows that there are still people who are excited to make games, and I think that's amazing. I look at the AAA gaming atmosphere right now. I look at these publisher studios, and I see the Skull and Bones, the quadruple A experiences that are nothing more than a hollow shell. And then I see the Hollow Knight Silksong that took 7 years to come out, and it's met or exceeded expectations, all because Team Cherry didn't want to release it yet. Now, there are the failures, okay? I think of Hytale. I was so excited for that game, and when it was announced that it would no longer be in development, I was really disappointed. And there was another game I was excited for, Life by You. That one I was iffy about because I don't like Paradox as a company. But I like Life Sims. You know, I like The Sims 3. And that game gave me Sims 3 vibes, and when they announced that it was no longer in development, I was sad. So it just shows that indie games are not safe. They are often quite the risk. In fact, more of a risk than AAA games, and I think it shows that when an indie game is successful and when it proves to me and it proves to the gamers around the world that we don't have to be scared of indie games. We don't have to worry that these AAA games are the only way to play. You know, most gamers will play Call of Duty or the FIFA or Fallout Club, Football Club. You know, like that's where most of the gaming is, and that's where most of the money is, and the AAA studios know that, the publishers know that, and so when there's someone willing to take a risk and it pays off, and we see it pay off, it's incredible, and it makes me so excited to be a gamer. It makes me so happy. It really just shows a creativity over scale. It tells me that development for games is still going strong, no matter how bad I feel about it, no matter how hard it feels to enjoy games nowadays, is that I can always find enjoyment in these titles. Oftentimes I see these indie games go unnoticed, underappreciated, and eventually they might get the limelight, but a lot of the times they don't. And it makes me happy to see individuals like Video Game Donkey and his company BigMode kind of expanding these indie games so that they reach a further audience. And we need more like that. We need more people like that. I really do believe it. We need people who can show and make indie games visible to a wider audience, because there are some incredible indie games out there. And I think for the future, we need to pay attention a little closer to these indie games. You know, we're always going to get a Call of Duty. And this year's Call of Duty looks like absolute crap. I haven't bought a Call of Duty since Modern Warfare 3. And I'm happy. You know, I have never been happier to not be a Call of Duty fan. And we see AAA games that are succeeding, like Battlefield 6. That game was incredible. The beta was awesome. Okay? And then we see stuff that you need to be wary about. Like, I've been playing the new Skate beta, or the early access to Skate. You know, like, it's there, it's a game, it's playable, and it can be fun, but we need to make sure we keep being accountable. You know, we need to make sure we keep all these publishers accountable, because they are sticking their grubby little fingers in these games, and it's so easy for these companies to ruin, like, these games so fast. I want to come back and just say gaming is a really important hobby for millions of people around the world, and these publishers are, I'm going to say the word, I'm going to say evil. These publishers truly are evil. They are greedy. They only care about the money. Pay attention to the indies. Pay attention to the people who are passionate. And I'm not just saying that the AAA games there's no passion behind them, because there are. There are people who have so much passion for these games. However, publishers ruin them. And I think it shows time and time and time again that these publishers don't know what they're doing. Because they only care about how can we increase our bottom line. How can we show that our quarterly budgets are higher next quarter than they are this quarter. And to me, that's not what gaming should be. Gaming should be about the fun. It doesn't matter if a game is bad. If you think a game is bad, someone else might think it's good. It's kind of the Pokemon concept. Every Pokemon has a favorite. You know, everybody has a favorite Pokemon, and everybody could have a different favorite Pokemon. You know, there's 1,000 of them out there. There's tens of thousands of games out there. One of those games is someone's favorite, and it could be, you know, the last FIFA they made, the last football club they made, or it could be Clarebscare 33, or it could be Bubsy 3D. You know, any game could be someone's favorite game. Give indies a chance. Truly, give indies a chance. I truly believe you need to give indies a chance. I think there's some incredible games out there, and it's a great hobby. There's a lot of passion out there. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I want you to have a good night, good day. I love you. I care about you. You're my favorite person ever. Give me a smooch. Okay. I've been Jotty. Thank you for your time.